Well, we're in the deep freeze for sure, and the Dobby is the drone. The Dobby is out of commission. These trees you see here, I flew it onto an adjacent property, and it came just out of range of where I was, and it tried to return and flew into the trees. So I've got 3 propellers out, but more are on the way. So I'll probably have it back up later this week. But yeah, it is a pretty fun little drone. But yeah, it's very cold, but if you look at the wind pattern aloft, this is looking to the west, you can see that we've got a southwest flow. So it's originating out of Mexico, actually. So there's something going on aloft, and we'll go ahead and put it together here. We'll start out with the isobars and thickness. And this is showing that the core of the polar air is from the Great Lakes down to the central U.S., right in there. So pretty much centered from Chicago all the way down to Dallas. Got some warm air coming in behind, probably some downslope in the northern Rockies and northern plains. And elsewhere, it appears the East Coast is under northerly flow with that high pressure moving to the southeast. Eventually, this cold polar high is going to recede and move into the Atlantic and become part of the high pressure field out there. But you can see that this extends even down into Mexico. You can see that pressure gradient back there, and this is pretty hard on the Mexicans, as a lot of the houses there are really not equipped to deal with this kind of cold. So a lot of the people there, they do kind of suffer when it gets cold like this. In fact, let's see if we can take a look down south. Yeah, look down here. You can see we've got 25. I'm not sure what town that is. I think, well, Monterey is, or I'm trying to think of the towns. I think Monterey is right here, but you can see some gusty winds here north out of the north, 25 knots there with 39. And we got 30 with freezing rain at Brownsville. Actually, that's Matamoros coming in right there. And we can see that cold front is all the way down into much of Mexico. So we'd probably put the leading edge maybe somewhere down there. Up in the Texas area, where we're at, you can see we're in the 20s and 30s for the most part. We got 26 there at DFW, 20 at Amarillo, and as you go north, we get into the colder air. 13 in Oklahoma City, then down to 6 at Kansas City, and then looks like a little warmer, about 18 up in Chicago, up to the north. There we go. It's interesting. They put some sort of frontal boundary. These frontal analyses are from the Weather Prediction Center at NOAA, National Center for Environmental Prediction. So let's see here. This is the reinforcing shot of cold air coming through Georgia and the Florida Panhandle, so we're looking probably for some much colder air coming into Florida in the next few days. And let's take a look out west. I'm always curious whether the cold air is spilled over the Rockies, because when we have very strong cold air outbreaks, sometimes we'll get the cold front kind of working gradually to the west like that over time. And let's see here. We've got a little bit of easterly flow there at Gallup, and a little bit of easterly flow showing up at a couple of the stations. But temperatures actually look a little bit mild. We got 51 there at Tonopah and 61 at Vegas, so probably not a whole lot of incursion of polar air into the western U.S. And we can just take a look at this real quick, and that kind of confirms it. It looks like there is some warmer air in the desert southwest right there. Okay, let's see here. It is going to be a cold night. I wanted to show you one neat product, the lamp. This is kind of like the MOS data, but this uses some high-resolution model data. So this is kind of a good way to see how cold we might be tonight. So the latest cycle is 01Z right there. We can click on Texas, for example, and hopefully that comes up here. Waiting for the page to load, but it gives you a list of different sites, and there's about 1,600 of those, and you can see these come up. This is definitely worth looking at. So let me put in DFW. There's Dallas-Fort Worth there. And yeah, I've never showed this on the webcast really, but You can see these are the times from 02 to 02 tomorrow. So this is midnight right here, and then 12Z, that's going to be about 6 in the morning, and then we have noon, and then 6 p.m. tomorrow. And we can kind of follow the temperature range. So overnight, you can see it's going to cool down to about 13 at Dallas, then up to about 33, 34, and then back down once again. And it also shows you the wind speed. So there's a lot of good stuff here if you're a pilot or if you just spend a lot of time outdoors. This is extracted from the models, and you can see we've got just tons of stations. Dumas and El Paso, Falfurrias, Fayette. So, yeah, I'll pull up one for Indiana since we have a few viewers out there. You can see some of the coverage there. There's Bloomington, and you can see that they're just kind of holding in at 5 degrees all night and up to about 19 tomorrow. So, yeah, definitely check that out. Just put in into Google, put in LAMP, and then NOAA. Or you can put in GFS. So those are some good products to look at. Okay, yeah, it is pretty cold here, and I've got 63 right here at my desk, kind of bundled up. And this is the potential temperature, and you can see that there is a bit of a potential temperature gradient coming into Georgia. So this is the reinforcing shot of cold air, and then it extends out into the Gulf. And then this also shows the tail end. So, yeah, it does not look like it has crossed the Rockies. Maybe a little bit in Wyoming right there. But this is indication that the air mass is probably kind of shallow out in the western periphery there. So one way we can check that out is to look at the soundings. So we'll pull up Amarillo would be a good one. That's good for sampling the western periphery there. And let's see here. So there's the cold air. And it's hard to tell exactly where this tops out at. Probably the absolute max is about right there. That's going to be about 14,000 feet, but there's a lot of northwesterly flow driving it to the southeast. So that's probably actually what's keeping it out of the Rocky Mountain region. I'm going to check a couple more sites here. We'll look at Denver. There's Denver coming up, and the air mass looks a little bit more mild right there. Temperature's hovering right around freezing, and looks like this tops out at about 18,000. But again, there's a westerly component there, and that's helping to keep the air mass out of the Rockies. So we can take a look in the Intermountain region, Grand Junction in western Colorado. And this shows a little bit of mild air. I mean, 41, that's kind of on the mild side. And definitely some warm air above that. If you extend this down, kind of like between moist and dry, that's kind of what I like to do. I go between the moist lines, like right there, and the dry lines. And I kind of bring that down and look at the temperature. I can see that's about 50 degrees right there, 50 to 55. So this is definitely some rather warm air in that region. So that's one way you can kind of check the air mass consistency in that region. And once again, yeah, out in the Nevada area, things are kind of mild out in that region too. But let's check Wilmington, Ohio, and that's definitely going to be in the cold air. And you can see we're way over to the left on those soundings. Got about minus 14 Celsius there, and a lot of cold air. And there's the tropopause at about 33,000 feet. There's the temperature anomaly. So you can pretty much see where all the cold air is. And again, if you're trying to examine the air mass out in the western region, you can see we're above normal out in Nevada and Utah and Arizona. And we can kind of trace where the cold air is. So that's going to be the cold front. And that extends on south into Mexico. And it looks like this tells us maybe the cold air is kind of like that. So it's extending from about Safford to just west of Gallup. It looks like it's not through Gallup. They're kind of warm there. You can see the temperature gradient there between Albuquerque and Gallup. So it looks like the cold air, there's a little bit of a backdoor front in that region, and then it just kind of hooks up with the front range of the Rockies right there. And then it looks like a pretty good warm intrusion up into Canada. So maybe a bit of a pattern change up in that region. So let's see what's driving that. Looks like low pressure right there. And that's kind of weird. We're seeing northerly flow there in the Northwest Territories, but conditions are above 15 degrees above normal there. So I'm not sure what's causing that. I think we might have gotten some very deep southerly flow coming off the Rockies, and maybe it pushed a bunch of warm air up in that region, and maybe it's bringing that south. And also it could be a lack of fresh snowpack in that region. When we lack the snowpack, or it's very old, you lose those air spaces that are insulative, then that allows the air mass to conduct, and the warm ground temperatures, they are kind of warm up in that region, 30s. I think about 30 might be the ground temperature, and yeah, if that's exposed, that's going to conduct up into the air mass. Okay, let me take a look at the chat and make sure we don't have any microphone outages. So let's switch this over. Okay, there's the latest satellite data. Okay, yeah, I was out of service yesterday. I had to go to town and deal with some stuff there. Let's see, we got David Holcomb, David Moore, and Ron Chalfant, Jeff Krob. Ron Chalfant out there in Southern California. Mr. Manlett and David Moore saying sunny but cold in the Metroplex today. We have Fun with Tech here. Jeff Krob mentioning supposed to see a little snow tomorrow on the Maryland eastern shore. We had Adam Davis there, added another 4 inches of snow today. Now the overnight temperature is likely to drop to 0 again. Looking forward to a warm-up. Very good. Megan John, 1 degree in Minnesota. 1 lowly degree there. Jeff Krob mentioning things should be moderating for the next 2 weeks. Mr. Manlett mentioning 11 at Rockford, Illinois. Just west of Chicago there, clear sky, 10 knot wind out of the northwest. Got Kevin McKinney here. Mr. Manlett mentioning high pressure coming into the Midwest. Burl H. saying good evening. Megan John says don't forget to like, and I appreciate that. And Kathy Campbell-Wallace mentioning 14 degrees there in the Bighorn Basin of Wyoming. Was clear and sunny today. Patchy fog. Yeah, very good there. Okay, so yeah, you can see all the green and yellow indicating very cold air spilling southward into the central U.S. And there it is right there. Looks like the core of some of the coldest air right there over Iowa. Let me switch back and see what the temperatures were in that area. Yeah, right around 0 to 2 degrees. That's definitely pretty cold. And I had this zoomed in sector. This is really good for checking for any clouds or fog, anything like that. And you can see a little bit of it here. We're seeing that weird phenomena again up in Minnesota. You see that, yeah, see this red here? That's actually a cloud, and it's very rare to see the clouds warmer than the surface, but that's exactly what's happening here. Now, there are some higher clouds in this region that are definitely colder, but out ahead of it, this is some lower cloud. This is stratus, and it looks like there's actually kind of a large plume of it over this entire region of northeastern South Dakota. So zooming in on these sectors and really analyzing things and looking at the motion, that really helps you there. And you can see a little bit of interesting phenomena there in Lake Michigan. And part of the lake there is open water and part of it is ice. And I think the blue here, I think that's some of the open water right there coming through. So the heat, same temperature as down in Florida here, is making its way up to the satellite. So let's just look at Florida real quick, see what the temperatures in the area are. We're looking at 40s. So somehow 30s and 40s are making it up to the satellite, so probably still a little bit of warmth there with that lake. But over here on this side, this looks like could be some lake effect snow, or it could be ice, one of the two. I can see it kind of spreading on shore, so I think some of that is lake effect. And let's see here. You can see the valleys and lakes, and especially when you get into Texas where the lakes have been warm most of the winter, they're really showing up here. Water temperature is about 35 to maybe 50, somewhere in there. Then we get down into South Texas and we get the remains of that old system, and it looks like out to the west a couple of waves approaching. I think here's one, and this is a southerly one right there. So we can check that out on the dynamics charts, and that's going to be these right here from the people at Meteostar. So let's bring that up. This is the heights and vorticity, 500 millibars. Let me get this set up. Okay, so that's our current chart right there. Very strong troughing from Illinois to Missouri there, and it's got a very channeled look, and this indicates that the jet is running something like that right there. So from south from the Dakotas into Oklahoma, making the curve right there, and then up the Ohio River Valley up to New York. And don't see any waves embedded in that since it is channeled, but there might be one wave right here in Texas. Actually, this is 18Z data. Let me bring this up a little bit further. Hang on. There we go. Okay, this is more current. So yeah, one wave going across North Texas there. And here's this other wave in the Big Bend region. And another wave out in western Arizona. So typically we see the clouds along and ahead of those waves. Yeah, so somewhere in that area and right there. And yeah, that kind of works out right there. Right around the Big Bend area right there and in central Arizona. So heights and vorticity, that's a good way to keep tabs on upper level energy moving across the region. Okay, what else do we have here in our lineup? Let me take a look. I really need to get the cross sections going. Wind grids is definitely very good with that. So I need to get wind grids going sometime. Things have been kind of chaotic here, so I do have some good news though. It looks like we are going to be able to speed up our internet here in the next few days. I'll try to keep you all posted on that. But let's look at the weather over the next few days, and I guess we'll start with the European model. Okay, so there's the ECMWF. This is the pressure, and we've got this big old blob right here that's indicating the cold air, and you notice that there's a very strong correlation with that and this other chart, if I can find it. Hang on a second. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, see that? They're very similar there. So that's not really coincidental. It's the cold, dense air causing the high barometric pressure readings. So we can kind of use this to track the air masses. Let me get back where I was here. There we go. Okay, so let's see what's going to happen with the ECMWF. Switch this to tomorrow morning. And we can see that sinking south across Texas, and likely in this very this area of this is right where the high pressure area is. We see very light winds there, and that's really the ideal place to get strong radiational cooling. So likely it's going to be a very cold night in North Texas and western Arkansas and a lot of the adjoining areas there. So this is going to continue sinking southwest or southeast, and there it goes, pushing into the southeast U.S. by Friday morning. So it's probably going to get a lot colder in Florida over the next couple of days. We see low pressure in northern... Try this again. We're seeing low pressure there in southern Canada. So this is indicative of polar air. The polar air factory has shut down. So when we have low pressure up there, we're likely heading into a more mild pattern. So this is kind of a system moving east to or west to east. And looks like we have a southern stream system also active right there. Pressure falls in North Texas for Sunday. And then for Monday, looks like we got something like that right there. So a system coming from the Pacific and moving up to the Great Lakes. And there it is. Probably something like that there for the fronts. So things look a little bit quieter here for the next week. Here's another system coming together for Wednesday, the 24th. And there it is, kind of a mild, small-scale system moving up towards Ohio. And then it's out of the picture, and then more pressure falls. So usually what I'll look for... Actually, this is interesting. Yeah, looks like we are building some more polar air for the 26th. Let me run through these charts real quick. Yeah, it looks like we developed some polar air in Quebec on Monday. That doesn't affect really anybody except New England. And yeah, this is it. We're 240-hour point for Friday the 26th. It looks like we're developing more polar air. So we may get another outbreak. And this looks like it could possibly affect the Great Basin area in the southwest U.S. right there. And the other thing that I usually look for on this is moisture return. So what I'm doing is I'm looking down along the Gulf, and I'm looking at the pressure gradient. So starting out, this is all coming off the continent, so that's got no moisture return. This is still northerly winds, and now we're starting to get a little bit of moisture return, but this is kind of a recycled polar air, so that's not going to do much. So let's go forward. Still some moisture return, but again, we're just kind of tapping air from the high. So it looks like we're tapping a little more of the Gulf right here. This might be a little more deeper for the 21st, and that can be significant when we have these Pacific systems moving through the southern plains. So we might watch for something on the 21st, 22nd with that. And then, let's see here, very little moisture return until the 24th, maybe a little bit of something there. But it is a pretty weak moisture return, and now we scour out the Gulf once again on the 25th. And then when we return to the polar pattern here for the 26th. Okay, so that's the European model, and let's put it together and compare that with the GFS, the American model. All right, there we go. All right, here's our system centered over Kansas. And then overnight, looks like a little bit of snow coming into Asheville. Looks like around Lynchburg all the way down to Montgomery, Atlanta, and possibly to Biloxi. And the high pressure just continues moving southeast through that region of the country. Looks like a little bit of snow going for the Carolinas for Wednesday. And then things should start moderating across much of the U.S. The high pressure kind of recedes there. Things are pretty quiet, and then we start looking out to the Pacific, and we have to kind of keep an eye on waves moving across the Rockies. So let's see what happens. This is mostly a low-level system, it appears, for the 21st. So there we go. This is about to emerge from the Rockies on Sunday. And you can see we do have a little bit of moisture return. So that might bring some higher dew points up into the Arkansas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Texas area. So looks like that's enough to get some showers going for Sunday afternoon. And then that'll move into the Mississippi River region during the night. Possibly a few showers in that area, and then further north where we have cold air, that'll wrap around the back of the system, so it looks like some snow in Wisconsin down to Iowa. And then we have a couple more waves out in the Pacific region. Looks like the next one to affect us Well, it looks like a weak one for about the 23rd, 24th. There's that one. All right, let's see here. Next one. This is around the 26th. Pretty well-developed system there in Southern California. And definitely some cold air aloft right in that region. And this tracks across the Rockies 26th through 28th, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And then emerges into Texas on the 28th. And this is about the time that the European model was building in some cold air. GFS looks like it might be going a little bit weaker with the cold air, I think. But let's see what happens here. So there's that system going through the southeast U.S. Yeah, the GFS is going a little bit more pessimistic there. Or I should say it's going a little bit weaker with that polar air. We're only seeing about 1026, and I think the European model had something like 1040 coming out of Montana. We do have some baroclinicity out in Wyoming and Utah, Idaho for the 29th. Pretty good gradient right there, so this is a good area for frontogenesis. Quite a system up in the northeast, but looks like along the coast mostly rain. And here's that system coming together in Colorado. So this is the 31st, and now we're coming in within range of February. Okay, then we get to the end, and I guess that cold front has pushed all the way to the Gulf Coast, right in that region right there. All right, so yeah, it's going to probably be a little bit on the cold side over the next couple weeks. Probably around the 20th and 21st, some warm-up. We've got that southwesterly flow in Texas there, and some moisture coming up. So that'll be a little bit of a change to the pattern. And then after that passes, we get back into the cold air, the 540 line, coming all the way down to Dallas. And you can see that 540 line stays pretty far south, all the way down to the Red River and down to Tennessee and Carolinas. And then a bit of a warm-up there for the 26th, 27th. And then 540 line comes all the way back down to Oklahoma. So, yeah, we'll keep an eye on it, and it should be interesting to see whether we get this coming in around the 26th and 27th. So a little bit of disagreement there with the models. Okay. Let's see here. Let me get my... got to shuffle around a couple windows here. And then we'll take a look at chat here. Okay, let me see what we got going on there in the chat window. Megan John, always a good day in Minnesota when we get above zero. Yeah, Sarah Wood, mentioning lake effect snow coming in off Lake Michigan. Very good. Ryan Toomey's back in the office watching the storm system with great anticipation rolling on northeast. 68 degrees. Wow, that sounds nice. DGF is here and mentioning this is the best weather forecast. And I do need to let you all know that this spring I'm planning on doing severe weather coverage. It'll be kind of a cross between garden variety severe weather coverage and chase weather coverage. And we'll probably do some of that, and then I think maybe on Saturday, Sunday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, maybe on those days we'll make it only for the Patreon donors. And then on the other days, anybody will be able to watch that. Okay, yeah, I appreciate that fun with tech. Kevin McKinney says on severe weather day, outbreak days, he has extended webcasts. Very good. Adam Davis trying to refine his winter weather knowledge. Kevin McKinney says on major hurricanes we have extended coverage. Yeah, that was quite a evening when we had Harvey coming into Texas there. We had our severe weather coverage on that day. Adam Davis actually hopes to actually be chasing as usual this spring. Ryan says weather war on the west, on the Great Plains. Okay, I think that's about all I got for tonight, so I appreciate you all watching the webcast, and hopefully we will see you tomorrow. Take care.